Welcome back to another project. In this project, we're going to create a photo gallery. As you can see from the final version of the project, we have an input that we can choose the number of photos we would like to see. For example, if we leave it 2 and we click on get photos, we get 2 photos randomly. And if we click again, we get 2 different photos. We can change this one to 3 or 4, for example. And if we choose, for example, more than 10, for example, I write down 11, I click on get photos, we get an error saying the number should be between 0 and 11. So we're going to learn how to handle the errors inside this project. And if you choose again 2 and we click on get photos, we get 2 images from the website that we're going to use. So the website we're going to use for their API, the image API, is called Unsplash.com. So we're going to learn how to get the API key and use this API to get random photos. Also, the design is completely responsive. For example, if we have 6 photos, you can see that we have 3 in the largest screen. And if we decrease the size of the screen, you can see we have 2 inside the tablet size and 1 inside the mobile screen. So we're going to learn how to use a Flexbox to make these images responsive. In the next section, we're going to start with the HTML part of the project. So see you in the next section. All right, let's start our project. As usual, I have put the final version as our reference so we can compare our coding with the final version. So the final version has already been connected to the API. So when we request for the new photos, we're going to receive the photos from the Unsplash API. The first things we need to do is to create the HTML part of the project. So I'm going to use VS Code as a text editor, but you can use any other text editor you prefer. So I click on the Visual Studio Code, and here we close the Get Started tab, and in the File menu, we click on the Open folder. I would like to create the project in my desktop, so I choose the desktop, and I just create a new folder, and we name the folder the name of our project, which is Photo Gallery. So I just say photo-gallery. Right. So after pressing the enter, we have created the photo. Now we can click on the select folder to select the folder. This is going to open that folder inside the Explorer section on the left side. So whatever we create here goes inside that folder. So we close the Get Started tab again, and here we click on the new file to create a new file, and we name the file index.html, and we press enter. Now we have an empty HTML file, but we can use an exclamation mark to create an HTML boilerplate. So we just add exclamation mark and we see 2 auto suggestions. If we click on the first auto suggestion from Emmet, we get an HTML boilerplate, which includes the doc type, which is the version of the HTML we are using. And for HTML5, we just write down here HTML. Then we have an HTML tag, which covers all the website, including the head tag and the body tag. We have a lang attribute inside the HTML opening tag, which is for the language of the website. For example, if your website is written in English, you can just put EN. So the default one is EN for English, but you can choose a different language if you prefer. Then we have the head tag, which includes the metadata tag and also the title tag. The first metadata tag is for the charted attribute and the characteristics of the characters, for example, the symbols and the alphabets. UTF-8 is recommended because it contains nearly all the characters and symbols, and it is recommended by HTML5. So most of the website has the charset attribute of UTF-8, which is the recent one. Then we have the compatibility metadata tag, which is for the Internet Explorer users, and tell the Internet Explorer to use the recent rendering engine, which is Edge. The next metadata tag is for the viewport. and it's going to set the width of the website to the device's width. The meaning of that is, for example, if you have a mobile screen, the width of the website is going to be smaller, for example, when you are using a desktop or laptop screen. The next one is the initial scale of the zoom level of the browser. For example, 100%, 80%, or something else, but the default one is 1. If you want the 80%, for example, zoom level, you can just set this one to 0.8. Then we have the title of the website, which comes on the tab of the website. I'm going to show you inside the web browser now. So in order to open the browser, we can use the live server extension that we have installed, or if you don't have, I highly recommend you install a live server extension. If you have that extension, you can just click here on the bottom, go live, and this is going to open the browser for you with the server that is located to 5500. And it opens the index.html file that we have created. And the title of the website is document, as you can see. Let's bring this one to the right side and the VS Code on the left side. So any change we do, we can see in real time. Because live server always checks the saves inside the VS Code, and it's going to re-render the page for you. So you don't need to refresh the page to see the changes. For example, if I change the title, so let me close the Explorer section so we have more space. For example, if we change the title of the page to the name of the project, which is Photo Gallery, we see the change in real time here on the right side. So let me change it. So just say Photo Gallery. Now we see the tab here on the right side. All right, so we have finished with the head tag. Now we can start in the body tag and we create our website. If you look at the final version, we have a background, and we have inside the background, we have a container that covers this head tag. Then we have a smaller heading tag. Then we have an input, a number input. And finally, we have a button. And when we click on the button, we see the images. Okay. So first we need a container. So we're going to, inside the body, we add a div with a class of container. All right. And here we can have the first one, the h1 tag, which is saying photo gallery. You can see it here. After this one, we have an h2 tag saying enter the number of photos. So now, as you can see from the final version, it's time to add the input here. So after the h2, we add an input, but the input, the type is number. So after the clone, we add number. So we get this auto suggestion, which is going to add an input with the type of number like this. We don't need a name for this, but the ID is going to be input because we want to target this input and get the information later using JavaScript. So it's the best way is to add an ID. And for the class, for styling this input, we add a class of input as well. This, we set the initial value of the input to be, for example, 2, like this. The number is 2, and then you can change it here. And we want to set a minimum and maximum. For example, in the final version, the minimum is 1, and you cannot go more than 10. So we're going to add some limit for the input. So here we just say minimum is 1 and maximum is 10. So this is going to limit the number, so you cannot have less than 1 or more than 10. So that was it for the input section. After the input, if we look at the final version, if, for example, if we put the 11 and we press get photos, we get an error. All right. So we want to have this error too. So let me copy this text. So here, after the input, we're going to have a small tag. A small tag is just like a text tag, but it gives you the smaller size of the text. So we added a small tag with a class of error message and the ID of error message. So for the class, we add dot. For the ID, we add hashtag. And we just write error message. And inside this one, we just paste that one, or we just write down error message, because later we're going to add that message using JavaScript. So we just say error message for now. So this is just a hard coded, all right? But just for the styling, we have this one. But later we're going to use JavaScript to add this message. So now if we, for example, choose the correct number between 1 and 10, we just get rid of that message. So we're going to use JavaScript to dynamically add that error message. So you're going to learn it soon. So after this message, we have the button. So let's add the button after this small tag. So the button has the class of btn and the ID of btn. So we just write button. We add a class of btn by adding a .btn and hashtag of btn. Okay. And inside the button, there is a text, and we just say get photos. You can see the button here. Let me zoom this and you can see it better. Okay. After the button, we have the images. Okay. So the images can be 1, can be 2, can be 3. But for now, just for the purpose of styling, we add a couple of images, and later we're going to add them dynamically using JavaScript. So we add a div with a class of gallery and with the ID of gallery as well. The class is for styling and the ID is for adding functionality later using JavaScript. This is the most common convention for creating the HTML tag. You can do any way you like, but I mostly see people doing this way. And I use this convention in my code as well. So we have a div with a class of gallery and the ID of gallery. And inside this div, we're going to have an image. So we add an img tag. The source, we just choose a random image from the internet. I'm going to use a website called Unsplash. So if you search for Unsplash on Google, and if you go to the website called unsplash.com, this website provides you for the many free images or videos. So you can just search for example, I search for nature. I'm going to choose one of these images like this. I just click on that. This is going to open it, and then right click and click on copy image address. And then paste that link inside the src tag. And inside your website, you have to see that image. So in the alt tag, we just say image. Okay. So now you have the image, but it's kind of big. Later using JavaScript and CSS, we're going to style and dynamically shows these images. So for the purpose of the styling, because as you can see, if you have more than, for example, more images, you see it in a different row. And if you have a different size, you see it differently. Okay. So we're going to style it using Flexbox, later CSS. So I'm going to add more image so we can style them like that. So I'm going to copy this image 3 more times using Alt Shift arrow down. So 1, 2, 3. So now we should see 4 images in our website. So later we use the CSS to style this HTML file. So that was it for the HTML section of our project. In the next section, we're going to install this website using CSS. So see you in the next section. All right, in the last section, we have completed the HTML part of the project. In this section, we're going to install the project using CSS. If you look at the final version of the project, and if we refresh the page, we see we have a container in the middle, just in the center of the browser, horizontally and vertically. We have a title, 2 titles. We have an input styled like this, and we have a button with this hovering effect. So we're going to style this using CSS. The first thing we need to do is to create a CSS file. So we open the Explorer section. For opening the Explorer section, you just need to use Ctrl-Shift-E, or you can go to the menu and go to the the view, click on Explorer. So, or you can use Ctrl-Shift-E on the Windows. All right. So now here on the left side in the Explorer section, we create another file and we call it style.css. And we press enter. Now we have the file, but it doesn't work like that. Actually, I'm just made a mistake. I put 2 dots. So it's 1 dot is okay. It doesn't work now because we haven't added a link to this file inside the index.html file. So we need to add a link inside the index.html to this CSS file. So after the title tag, let's close the left side using Ctrl B. We add a link tag. We just write link and we choose the one with the CSS here. This is going to add a relationship between the HTML file and the CSS. And the href is the destination of the link. And as both files are located at the same directory, we just need to write install.css here. Now we can install our project inside the install.css. So inside our website, as you can see, we have a 4 huge image. So in order to see the result, I want to firstly install the images and make them smaller so we can see the changes in a better way. But mostly people start with the body section. So let's install the image first. In order to target the images are inside a div with the class of gallery, right? So we target that, we just say dot gallery, and we just target each image by adding the image tag after the space. So dot gallery space image. Now we are targeting each image because it's inside the div with the class of gallery. We said dot gallery because it has a class of gallery. Then image is inside the div, so it should be after the gallery. Now we can set the width. I set it to be 400 pixels. So let's refresh it. So it didn't affect because the name of the, let me show you here. Ctrl B. We open the Explorer section. I just named the file styles.css, but the link was at the top as style.css. This one should be styles.css. So now we see the effects. So be careful of the naming. And now we see the image is smaller. So now we can start. So let's add actually height as well. So we just say height 250 pixels. So that is a size I want to use for the image. So it's enough for the image to be small. Later we're going to continue styling the image, but let's start with the body section. So we just target the body. It means that all the browser, whatever you see in the browser. So inside the body section, we just remove the default margin. As you can see, we have some space between the wall and the things. It's just say margin 0 to remove that space. I want to change the font family to be cursor new. So it's kind of this font, but you can choose any font you like. This is my preference. And then I want to change the background color. I just say background. I want it to have a linear gradient color. Linear gradient means you have 2 colors that goes from one color to another. As you can see from the final version, it starts from light green to light blue, from top to bottom. In order to get that color, we just add a linear gradient, and we just say I want it to go from top to bottom. So we just write to bottom. The first color, I want it to be light green, and the second color, I want it to be light blue. So it goes from green to blue all the way down. Right? In order to bring everything to the center, we can use the display. We change the display from block to flex. And also we add a height to the body. We just set the height to be 100% of the viewport height. So whatever the browser is, we're going to have the 100% of it. So we just say height, 100% of the viewport height. And in order to bring everything to the center, we can just say justify content center to bring everything to the center horizontally. Let's refresh the page. Justify content center. And we just add the align item center as well. So everything came to the center vertically, but horizontally didn't come. So let me check. Justify content center viewport height. So margin 0. So it didn't work yet. We can add a text align center too, so to bring everything to the center. So now everything is in the center, and now we can just install this container. So as you can see, we have a container with a different color, and it has a shadow as well. The container, if you look at the HTML file, is just a div with a class of container. We can target that by just adding here dot container, and we just let's bring this one to the right side so you can see the changes. The images are so big, so we cannot. So if we here the inside the container, we change the display to flex. We bring the pictures next to each other. So let's remove some of the images so you can. So I just comment 3 of the images so we can just continue to style first, and then I'm going to add it when I'm working on the images. So for now, we just target the container. Let's change the background color to be Alice blue, which is kind of a gray color, white gray color. We add a padding. So we add a space between the container and the content by just saying padding 20 pixels. All right. I want to make it rounded. So I just add a border radius of 5 pixels. After that, I'm going to add a box shadow to add a shadow effect. The box shadow has some properties. The first one is the shadow in the x-axis. So I set it to be 0 because I want it to be just vertically shadow. So we have a 10 pixel vertically shadow. You can see it at the bottom. And I want 20 pixels blurriness. So it's getting blur, and we have some shadow to the left and right as well. But the shadow is a bit dark. We can change the color of the shadow by just adding an RGBA color, 000 for the black color, and 0.3 for 30% opacity. So it's just the black color with opacity, so it's a better quality shadow. After the box shadow, let's set the width of this. I want the width to be 90% of the screen size. So it's going to have a 5% left and right space. Even in the bigger screen, we have 5% in the left and 5% on the right side. So it's going to be always beautiful in all the screen sizes. Then the next things I want to do, that's enough for the container. We can add a margin as well. Sometimes in the bigger screens, you don't have a space. So I just add a margin of 10 pixels. So this is going to help when we have a big things. Like here in the final version, if you have, for example, 6 images, we still have some space at the top and bottom. So this is going to help for that. So that was it for the container part. Let's style this H2 tag, the enter the number of the photos. H2, as you can see, the enter the number of photos is inside an H2 tag. So we can target that one by just saying H2. I just want to make that one thinner, the font weight. I changed the font weight to be 400. So this is going to be thinner. And I want everything to be on top of each other. It's input, this message, and this button. So inside the container, let's change the display to flex. Then we change the flex direction to color like this. Now everything goes on top of each other. All right. So after the H2, let's style this. We can do this input. Let's style the input. The input has a class of input here. So we can target that one by just saying dot input. Then I want to add some padding. So let's add a padding. Let's add a 20 pixels of padding on the x-axis, and top and bottom 20 pixels, and left and right 10 pixels. So let's see, still big. I think in container, if you add a text align center, it's going to help you. So this is not going to work. So let's continue. So just ignore this text align center. We delete it. And inside the input, we add some font size. I want it to be bigger in size. So font size to be 18 pixels. So the text is bigger. Then we just add a background color of white. Now you can see the border around it. Let's add some border radius of, for example, 5 pixels. And let's bring this text to the center using text align center. Let's see. So it's a bit huge. So I can change the size of it. So let me see if I missed something. So, okay. So we can just set the width here. For example, we add 100 pixels. Let's see. All right. So this size is okay, but it's not in the center. So in the container, we add text align center. Text align center, and we just add justify content center and align items center. So now we brought everything to the center, and the size of everything got smaller. So if you want to bring everything to the center, you can just change the display to flex. If the flex direction is column, align item centers bring everything to the center horizontally. But if the flex direction is row, justify content center bring everything to the center horizontally. But just in case, you can add both of them to centralize everything. So now in the bigger screen, the size is okay too. Okay, so that's enough for the input section. Now let's install this error message here. The error message, it just has a class of error message. So I copy this class, and here by adding a dot, I can target that error message. And the error message, I want the color to be red. Okay, so the color is red. Let's make it a bit bolder by just saying font weight 600. Then let's add some margin so you have some space around it. So you can just say 10 pixels margin. And if you just, that's okay. Later we need to remove and don't show it. So in the final version, when we come to the website, we don't see the error actually first. And if someone make an error, for example, put the input 11, we get the error, okay? So by default, we don't see this. So in order to remove it, we can just set the display to none. But later using JavaScript, we can change that one and change the display to block and show it, all right? So just for now, we just say display now, none. Now let's install this button. So the button has the class of btn. So if you go to the button, you can see that it has a class of btn. So we can target that one by just saying .btn. So first we just change the text transform. Text transform, you can change for example, make it capitalized, lowercase, uppercase. I want the text to be uppercase. And now if we refresh the page, you can see that get photos is all uppercase. Then let's set the width of the button to be 250 pixels. Sorry, 250, not 2000. And set the height to be 45 pixels. We can set some margin at the bottom and top. We just say 20 pixels. And left and right, we can just say 0 because I don't want it to have any margin there. And let's add a font size to change the size of the font to be 18 pixels. Now it looks fine, but let's add some background color, and let's make it rounded in the corners using border radius, and we set the border radius to be 5 pixels. As soon as you add the border radius, the border appears as well. And let's change the background color to be black. So now you cannot see the text inside because the text is black too. So we change the color of the text to be Alice blue. Nice. And when we hover over it, we want to have some effects too. So we target that one. We just say btn clone hover. Hover means when we bring the mouse on top of that. So when we hover over it, I want to change the color of the text, we don't want to change the color. We just set it the same. Alice blue. But we want the background color, instead of to be black, I want it to be green. Okay. Now we hover over it. We see a green color. And also when we hover over it, I want the mouse to be a pointing hand instead of a cursor. So we just change the cursor to be pointer when we hover over it, like this. And the changing in the color is very fast. We can make it smooth by just adding a transition. We add a transition to the background dash color. We add, for example, 150 milliseconds with ease in and out effect. You see, it doesn't change too quickly. If you make this 1500, it should be very slow, as you can see. So depending on this item, we can make it more smooth. I think 300 would be better and nicer. All right. So that's it for the button. Now we want to style these images. Now we can just uncomment all the images and we start styling them. You can use Ctrl// to comment or uncomment a section. So now we have all the 4 images. So we can just target that gallery we have here. Inside the gallery, we have the images. We already have added and make the images smaller. Where were we? So no, we added at the bottom here, gallery image. Let's add more things here. So here we just, I want the color I want the images to be always in the center. So we just add the object fit cover. Instead of scratching the image, it's going to always keep the aspect ratio of the image by using object fit. And let's add some border. So we just say border radius, for example, 5 pixels, or yeah, that's enough. And we add some margin, 5 pixels. So we add some space between them. So let's see what we have. So in the final version, when we have, for example, 9 image, we can see everything here. But here we just see the images. We cannot see the top section. So we should have some other things. For example, let's see what we can do to fix that one. So we can just go at the top. Instead of just saying height 100% of the viewport height, which is limiting us to the 100% of the viewport height, we can just say mean height 100% of the viewport height. So this is going to fix the problem for us. Now, if we increase the size of the screen, we can see that if we have a bigger screen, the images goes next to each other. And for example, the bigger screen, we have 3 columns. For the tablet size, we have 2 columns. And for the mobile screen, we have 1 column. So the other things, it's up to you for more styling. For example, you can add some shadow effect or other things to the images. But for now, that's it for the styling. And if you look at the final version, for example, the person comes to the website, doesn't see the images. So for the images also, we want to hire all the image first, and then we want to show it by using JavaScript. So we can target that div with a class of gallery that is covering all the images here. We just say gallery, and we can just for now set the display to none. And later, using JavaScript, we are going to change the display to block to show the images. Now, we don't see the images, but if we change the display to block, we can see the images. So we can play with this display to show or hide the images using JavaScript later. Now we cannot just change it in this CSS manually all the time. So I think the website looks okay for now. And in the next section, we are going to add more functionality to the website. And we're going to learn how to connect with the Unsplash API to fetch the images and show it here inside the website. So see you in the next section for the JavaScript part of the project. All right, in the last section, we have completed the CSS part of the project. In this section, we're going to add a functionality to the website using JavaScript. If you look at the final version, you can see if you choose the number of images here in the input, for example, I choose 3 inputs. And when we click on the get photos, we should get some photos from the API. And if you choose, for example, 4, we get 4 images. And also, just pay attention to this button. When we click on it, until the image comes, you don't see the button anymore. So we have to remove the button while we are waiting for the images. And also, instead of image, we see a spinner here. So because my internet speed is fast, so you cannot see it. But if you have a slow internet and the request takes longer, you see that spinner in a longer time. All right. So we have to make a strategy when we have a request to the API, and while we are waiting, we show the spinner and we hide the button. And once the image came back, we remove the spinner and we put the image and we return the button to a normal text instead of return it and show it. And also, if we have for example, if we request for more than 10 image, we should get an error and saying number should be between 1 and 10. And if you put, for example, -1 or 0, you get the same error. But once there is no error, for example, we request for 1 image, the error would go away and we just see the image and the button. So this is the way we do it. The first things we need to do is to create the JavaScript file. So we go back to Visual Studio Code and we open the Explorer section using Ctrl-Shift-E. And here on the left side, in the Explorer section, we create a new file and we call it index.js. Similar to the things we did for the styled CSS, this file, we have linked the index.html to this file. We have to have a connection between the index.html and the JavaScript file as well. We can do that by adding a script tag. Usually we add the script tag at the end of the body tag because we want all the tags to be loaded first in the browser and then we manipulate it using JavaScript. So we add the script tag here. We just write SC and we choose the second auto suggestion, the one with the src. Inside the src, we write down the address of the index.html file, which is just index.js file. Because both files are located at the same directory, the source or the destination is just index.js. Now we can use the JavaScript file inside our project. So let's close the Explorer section and also we bring it to the left side and we bring the browser on the right side so we can see the changes in real time. So the things we need to do and add is just bring some elements that we want to manipulate. So we want to get the information of the input. We want to get the information of the button because we know when the person click on the button. We want to change that error message and also we want to change the image. So 4 things we need to bring. So we need to bring inside from the HTML file, we need to bring this input, this small tag for changing the error message. We need to have this button. And finally, we need to have this div with the class of gallery and we add different images inside this div. So the first things we need to bring is this button because we want to add event listener to this. So we want to listen to all the clicks that happens on this button. The button has the ID of btn. So we can target that one using the getElementById method. So here inside the JavaScript, we create a constant. The constant, we call it btn element because it's just the element. And this is going to be equal to document because we want to target all the browser and we should say document. And we target that button with the ID of btn by using getElementById method. And the ID name is btn. All right. So now we have this access to this button. We can just add the add event listener here. So for example, we just say here btn element dot add event listener, and the event we want to add is just click. So anyone click on this, we want to, for example, call a function, and we want to call the function, for example, fetch image or load image, or you can, whatever you're going to call it. I just call it fetch image. All right. So, and then we create this function here at the top. So we just say function, we call the function fetch image. So now if we console log, for example, clicked, and if we open the console using using F12 or Ctrl+Shift+C, so I use F12 to open the console. We have the console here. It's completely empty. Now, if we click on the button, we see it console logged, clicked. If we do it again, we see 2 clicks, 3, 4, 5. All right. So now we can call a function. So now instead of just console logging, we want to request to an API to get images. All right. So the API we want to use is Unsplash. So we went to unsplash.com to get this image, if you remember. If you sign in here, so I have signed in with my account here. So it's completely free. You can just create an account here. Once you have created the account, you click on this hamburger on the right side. And inside the product menu, just click on developers /API. Once you click on this, you're going to be redirected to the documentation for how to use the API. And if you scroll down a little bit, you see the explanation how many people are using it, so which companies. So, and instead of doing that, you just click here on your apps, because you have to create an application. So you click on your apps here, and here you see my previous applications. You can click on new application to create a new application. Here you need to just accept all their terms of service, and you just read them and accept the terms. And here you can call your application. Your application, I just want to call it photo gallery. And you just explain what the application is about, because sometimes they check your application. They can reject it or they can remove it. So just explain what you want to do. So this app shows images for users with different number of random image requests. Okay, and then you click on create application. Once you have click on the create application, you can see the amount of requests, usage. As you can see, it's limited to 50 requests per hour. So for just the purpose of creating and testing is enough for us. But if you want to have a application that is like millions of thousands of people are using, you need to just pay for their API to get more requests. But for now, that is enough. And here you have the access key and the secret key. This access key we need, because we need to have this access key to request. Otherwise, they reject your request. So just bear in mind, later I'm going to copy this. All right, so we go back to Visual Studio Code. Here, we just fetch. And the fetch we want to do is from this website. So here, because this is dynamic, we need to add a backtick because we wanted the different number of requests. So this is backtick. The backtick is located on top of the tab key on Windows. This is different from this is just the quote. Then we have backtick. So use backtick so you can have a variable inside your the link that you're putting here. So the link is this. You just have to say https clone, double clone, and /API.unsplash.com/photos. And here we just want to ask the number of requests, which we call it per page. All right. So we want to see how many per page. Per page should be like that. Per underline page. And this is going to be equal, for example, 1, 2, 3. So because we want to keep it between 1 and 10. So minimum 1, maximum 10. So we're going to make this variable here. So I just add a variable. You by $sign, and instead of curly braces, you can add a variable. And we call this one input value. So we need to create this one at the top. If you remember, we have an input here. So this was the input, right? And that one, this input has an ID of input. So we can bring it here just inside the function, because in each request, we need to check the input. So we need to update it. So we need to create the constant here. So we create the constant here and we call it input value. And we can get that one using documents, because we want to target the document, get element by ID. The ID of the input was input. Because we want to get the value, we just say dot value. All right. So now we can just put the input value here. So whatever the input value is, we put it here. So after this page per page, we can just add another query. We just say and we just say the page number. For example, we can just say page 1. All right. So I want to show you what we are fetching first. So we already fetched this data. Then we need to convert this data to the JSON file. So we just say .then after the fetching, just get the response and convert it to JSON. So we just say response.json. JSON is a type of file that we can use and we can get the data. It's like an array, so we can use it. All right. So we can use the .json method, which is a JavaScript method, to convert this fetching to readable data. And this one gives us the data. So after that, we just say .then, and this one gives us the data. Let me remove this. And here we can now we can console log the data. I want to show you what the data is. All right. So now we go to our website. We click here, get photos. We got an error. And the error says the access token is invalid because we didn't put our API key. If you remember, we have the access key here. If we don't put the access key, we get rejected because we are putting a bad request. So we need to copy this access key and add it at the end of this URL. So here we just write down the access key. We just call it. Let me add another and, because another query we have, and this one is called client underline ID. And this is equal to the access key that I have copied. All right. So now we have the client ID. Let's request again. So now if we click on get photos, instead of an error, we got 2 photos coming. So we got an array. So let me zoom this a little bit. You see it better. So this is an array with 2 elements. If each of them has a couple of information. For example, we have the links, we have the user, the name of the image. But the things we need is just that we need to use the URLs here. The URLs give us the full size, the image URL for the full size, regular, a small. For example, if I copy this, a small one, let me see. Let me copy it. And if you paste it here, we have to delete the code at the beginning and at the end. And if you press enter, we see the image. So each link is just a link to an image. All right. So the reason we got 2 is because the input was showing 2. If you change it to 3, we get 3. Okay. But this is not limited. For example, if I write down here 15, we get 15. But I want to limit this one to only from 1 to 10. So we can add it if a statement here. Just add it after this here, after this input value. I added if a statement. I just say if the input value is more than 10, or if the input value is less than 1, you have to add a message. If you remember, we had some message here, but we made it hidden by CSS. we can return it to not be hidden. First, we need to bring the elements. For example, this element has the ID of error message. So we bring this element first at the top. So we just call that a constant error message element. And this is going to be equal to document.getElementById. And the ID for that one was error message. We can bring that one here. We just say error message element dot style. We want to change the style, and we want to change the display from none to be equal to block. So it's going to be shown. So now, if we just request for the 2 inputs, we get it. But if we just make it, for example, more than 10, for example, 13, we can see the error message, but we're still requesting. I don't want to request too. So instead of, so in order to the function, we go outside the function and don't fetch, we just can return here. When you return here, when the code reach to this line, it's going to pass all the function and goes outside the function. So this one is not going to be read. So let's try again now. So I say 15, I said get photos, we get an error and we didn't request. All right. So this is the way that programmers add the like a condition to their request. All right. So the message is error message. We can change the message here as well. We can just say error message element dot. We can change its inner text, and we just change it to, for example, number should be between 0 and 11. So let's see. Now we just say 16. Number should be between 0 and 11. And when it's just correct, for example, it's 1, we get something. If it's just 2, we get 2. All right. So this one is working, but we need to remove this message, the error message, when the fetch is finished. So after the fetch, at the end, we need to just say error message dot style dot display. We change the display to none again. So let's try it again. So we just first choose 11 to get an error, and then we choose 1 to don't get an error, but the message should be gone. All right. But the problem is, if the message, this request takes too long, you don't see it. For example, let me purposefully decrease the speed. For example, I choose a slow 3G by going to the network. Now, for example, I choose 13, and then I choose 2. Let's see the console log, or let's see the console log. Now we request. You see the message is gone, all right? But we got this data after that. I want, what I want is the program wait for the response get completed and then remove the message. It means that I want the wait for the response. If it was successful or failure, after that, remove this message. All right. The trick that you can do is, instead of fetching directly, you can use await here. When you use await, you have to change the function from synchronous to asynchronous. All right. Now, when we request, for example, I just choose 11 to get the error, and then I choose 2. So the error is still there until we get the response, and then the error goes away. So it waits for the response of this await and then goes to here. This is the trick we're going to use to add the loading effects. All right. So I hope it makes sense. So this is the reason people use await and asynchronous function, because they want to wait for the response of fetching or other things. So we get it. And the other things is, we always get the same result, because let me show you in the pictures first. And the other things, first let's fix this one, and then we go to the next part. So now, if we get an error, for example, if we remove the first letter of our client ID, all right, and we request we're getting an error, but we don't know when to get the error. So we don't know the error message. So they show it inside this error message. The simplest technique is to add a try and catch. So after this wait, we add a try and catch a statement. All right. So when you write down try, you get the suggestion try catch a statement, and put this await. All right. And this message none inside this try. And if an error happens here, you can, instead of just display none, you can just have another error message. For example, we can just say error message dot style, dot inner text, and the text for this one we just say an error happened. Let me fix this one. An error happened. Try again later. So now we just our key is wrong. Yeah. So if we request now, we get an error. So now we got an error, but we still cannot see because we need to change the display of this one as well. So we just change the display error message element dot style dot display, and we set it this one to be block. So it's going to be shown. So now if you request, we get an error after a while, and we should see that one. I don't know why we don't see it. Just let me check. So error message dot style dot display is block. Let me see. So let's change this one from inner text to inner HTML. Let's test it. So let's change the network again to the fast internet. So I just put the no throttling. All right, so let's come back to the console. Let's try again. So we get an error, but we don't have the message. Let me pause the video and check, and I'll be back, and I'll show you the problem. All right, so I have checked that actually the code is correct, but try and catch doesn't work for that particular error. For other errors are fine, but because for the client ID, wrong client ID doesn't work. So it's not for the code, just that error doesn't show the error for the try and catch. But if you get another types of error, for example, if you request too much for this API, you can catch the error here. That's fine. So let's fix this client ID. I think we need to add a B here. So let's test it again. It should work now. All right. So now we have learned that by adding the try and catch, we can add the error, and also by using await, we can wait for the response and then do the loading and other things. So as I mentioned before, we just get the repetitive result here. We can make this one random by instead of saying just page 1, we want to make a random one. So we add a variable here, and instead of just saying 1, we can use math.random to create a random number between 0 and 1. And we can just multiply this one to 0, and we multiply this to 1,000. So the number now is between 0 and 1,000, but all the numbers, but we want just a round number. For example, 1, 2, 3, and etc. So we can just fix that one by just saying math.round, and we just wrap this math.random by the math.round. Now each time we get a different request. So this error is page is not invalid. So let me check. So we have just used the math.round. Oh, we forgot to add a parenthesis here. You need to call this. All right. So now, all right. So we just get a 2. As you can see, the ID is v1 for the first one. If you request again, the ID is different. So we are getting a different image each time. So we have fixed this one. Now we need to add the images. Add the images inside this gallery div. Inside the index.html, we have a div with the class of gallery. We want to add the images there. So first thing first, we need to bring this div inside the JavaScript at the top. So we create another constant and we call it gallery element. And this is going to be equal to document dot get element by ID, and the ID is gallery. All right, now we have the elements. Now we can add the images inside this element. So after the fetching and getting the response, this data, first we can check if the data exists, because sometimes you get an error, so you have to check. So if the data exists, we want to loop through all the data using for each, because it can be one image, it can be 2, 3, 4, up to 10. So we just say if we use the for each loop, so we just say for each, and this is going to give us each picture. So we just call it pick. I just say one pick. You get this one. All right. Now we need to add each pick there. For example, now I can console log, for example, pick.url dot a small URLs actually. So if you request now for 2, we got 2 URLs. If you click on each one of them, you get the first image. The second one is this image. So if you request again, you get 2 more images, which is different. This is all random. All right. Because we are creating the pages between 0 and 1000. So it should be always random. All right. So now we have the URL of each pick. So we can create the image tag here. And we can put the image tags, the URLs here. So we create a constant. We can create the constant here at the top. We just call it URLs. And this is going to be first an empty string, because we want it to be empty. And then for each loop, we want to add it to that URLs. So we just say URLs, whatever it is, I want to add this one to it. So we just say plus equal. We add a backtick because this is going to be dynamic too. And we add the image tag. So I just write down here, img. src for the source, and the source is dynamic, so we add a $, and the src is pick.urls dot, because we want to just get the small one, we just say dot small. And for the alternative, we can just say image, and we can close the tag like this. All right. So now we are adding this tag to this URLs. After this, we can add it to the gallery, the gallery element that we got. So we just say gallery element dot inner HTML is going to be equal to URLs, or instead of URLs, it makes sense to just say IMGs. It's better. So we change this one to IMGs because it makes more sense, because it's a tag. So we want to put the IMGs to the gallery element dot HTML. Now we cannot see it because the gallery element, the display is none for the gallery element. If you look at the here inside the style, the gallery, the display is none. So we just need to first change the display to block. So we just say style dot display, and this is going to be block instead of none. All right. So let's see it. So when we click, we see 2 images. All right. If we choose 3, we should see 3 images. All right. 5, we see 5 images. So all the images is requested and shows inside the gallery div. So let's close this one. And each time you request, you get a different image. All right. So the other things we want to do is add the loading effect. First, we do it for the button. We have the button elements. All right. So before the fetching, we just say btn element dot style dot display, and we set the display to none. We want to remove the button. So now if we click on the button, we get the images, but the button is removed. So, but we want to bring it back when the fetch is successful. So after the fetching here, and if the data is correct, we bring it back here. We just say btn element.style.display to block. All right. We need to do the same things for after the catching the error as well. So after the error, we need to bring it back. Okay. So let's try now. When we click, Let me make it slow. You can see it better. So we go to network. We decrease the speed. We just say slow 3G. Just pay attention. When we click on this, we have the request. When the request comes, we see the button. Look again. All right. So the image, the button is okay, but we want to, instead of seeing the image, we want to see a spanner here while we are waiting for the images. So we can do that one. First, we need to bring a spanner. So we go to a website called loading.io. So if you search for loading.io, in the search result, we see a website called loading.io. And if you click here, there are a lot of free loaders. I want to choose this loader in the free section. It's completely free. So you choose it here and you can change the color. For example, I choose this blue color. I want to make it thinner. And also I want the radius to be smaller like this. This size would be okay. And now you can just make it transparent for the background and download it as a SVG. So we click here on the SVG and we click on animated. This is going to download the file. It means allow you to download it. You click on free download and here we click on download. And you just drag this file and bring it inside the VS Code. You have to open the Explorer section first and you paste it here, just in the Explorer section. And then you rename the file and we call it a spinner.svg. Let's close it. Now we can use this file and let's close this. Now, after the try, we add another image tag. We just say, we call it loading. Let's create a constant and we call it loading. And this is going to be equal to that image tag. So here we just say img. The src is equal to, because you need to use this one. You change this one to backtick. So you can have a src here. So this one is a double quote here. And src is, because they are located at the same directory, you just write down spinner.svg. And you don't need an alternative for this one. It's okay. So after the fetching, before the fetching, we just say gallery element dot inner HTML is equal to that loading. All right. So now, if we come back to our website, if we press, let's see what we have done here. So just getting a gallery element dot inner HTML. So this, I didn't close the tag. So you need to close the image tag. And let's try again. All right. So we got the image. Let's try again. You should see the spanner. I don't know why we don't see the spanner. Let me check the code again. So we have the image tag. The src is spinner.svg. Let's see the name. Yeah, spinner.svg. That's correct. Then we close the tag. Let's add some space here. And let's try it again. See? Still, you cannot see it. Let's see spinner.svg. That is correct. So this is loading. Let me stop the video and I'll show you the error. All right, I have checked the code. Actually, there was no problem. The problem is because the internet speed, we choose the very slow internet, the spinner took a while to load. So if you change this one to normal internet and we see the spinner here, all right? So because we were choosing, if you choose, for example, fast 3G, you see the spinner, but very, very short time. All right. As you can see now, everything is working fine. Let's see and choose more images. All right. If you request too much, and if you exceed the 50, you get more an error. So you can see the error. So now, as you can see, now before the request, we set the button to be hidden by just changing its display to none. And also the gallery element is filled with this loading effect. After the request, we change the button to be shown by changing its display to block. And also we change the gallery element to images as well. So we also can be put this error none. Let's this one, instead of there, you can just put it here as well. So it's just the same. But here we are sure that we get the data and then we set the error to none. All right. So, and then if an error happens, we want to show the message an error happened, try again later. And also we want to show the display as well. We can also change the gallery display to none too. So we remove the image here. All right. So I think if you request more, we're going to reach, and now we reach I want to just show you this error actually. So now if you open the console, if you go to console, we see that if we do again, if you request, we get an error. So what's the error? Okay, this is an error. We don't know the error. Let's console log the error first. So if you console log the error, we can see that the error is the rate limit exceeded. So we have requested more than 50. And also in the message, we got an error happened. Try it again later. So I want to show you that the try and catch works like that. If an error happens, it's catch the error, and we can show the error message here as well. All right, so that was it for our project. I hope you enjoyed and learned many things. There were many concepts here you could learn about how to use the asynchronous function, how to use try and catch, how to handle the errors, and how to add loading effects in your JavaScript project. I hope you enjoyed and learned many things. See you in the next project.